Hello friends, welcome back to our new series here. We're calling it Yarn Yappin'. Yarn Yappin', my vision for her is just more chatty videos, more so me just yapping at y'all. Fiber fuckery is very much the process of something. We're fucking around, we're finding out, we're being creative. Whoa. We're being creative, we're doing something together. We're dyeing, we're spinning, whatever the fiber fuckery is. Yarn Yappin', I want to be more relaxed, laid back, just yapping. We're just yapping yarn related things. And today, episode number 1, we're doing hot takes. Y'all sent me your fiber related hot takes and I'm excited to get into them. Is this my second time filming this video because I lost clips a couple times on the first one? Maybe. I'm wearing a hand spun sweater. This is my hand spun yarn, except the blue. This blue I did not make, but the rest of it, hand spun, hand knit. Now that we got that out of the way, is it on backwards? No. Ooh, that'd be embarrassing. Okay, these are your hot takes, and I'm excited. And grab a beverage. I just have water. I'm dehydrated chronically. Grab some hot chocolate, some tea perhaps, because we're about to do hot takes. I would also like to add that I just got my hair done, and I didn't really style my bangs today. I just kind of slept on them, and they dried kind of wonky, and my hair looks really good, but it's just like reflecting so weirdly. And it looks like I have bald spots. I'm not balding, I promise. I'm not sure if I mentioned, I'm blind, so I do have all my hot takes written down here, and I'm going to be reading them. So if you see me unprofessionally reading off screen, that's what's going on. So our first kind of section of hot takes, I've clumped a lot of these together because they're all about the same topic. They're all about pattern designing. So I'm gonna read a couple for you here, and then we will discuss. If you refuse to grade your patterns to be size inclusive, you shouldn't write or sell them. Period. You can't charge for a pattern you've only made in one size. Yeah. New garment designers need to learn tactical writing, grading, fitting, etc. before charging money. Too many pattern makers are horrible about making patterns for larger sizes. Period. So all of these hot takes are around like size inclusivity, body inclusivity among patterns, and heavily agree with all of those. That's actually one of the reasons I don't make patterns. There's many reasons I don't make patterns, but a big reason is I can't do math, and I have a learning disability, so I cannot grade and do all of the work that's needed to make patterns in a full inclusive size range. So I don't sell patterns, because if I released a pattern with 3 sizes in it and I have a subscriber or a follower who wants to purchase that pattern, and they like happily go onto my website looking for that pattern, and they're looking at the final measurements of the piece and their body is not reflected in the final measurements available, that is a horrible fucking feeling. That is a horrible feeling. And I feel like as an industry, fiber arts as a whole, we've just gotten too comfortable with selling whatever pattern we're selling, and the one size fits all patterns are not it. They're not it. It's embarrassing. Like, I agree with all of these. We just need to do better across the board with size inclusivity in patterns, because if you did the math and you know the math and the shaping and the fit of 5 sizes, you could just spend however extra long and make some more sizes. I do understand that pattern grading is very difficult, and I could never do it, hence why I do not. But if you're already doing it, you might as well go just include everyone that you can. It's not that hard. Hot take, apparently. Personal take, a large stash is stressful. And I agree with that, because I'm just picturing some content creators that I follow, and a lot of their like craft room or their backdrop is just an open yarn wall, or it's like open shelving with just exposed yarn, and that large of a stash just exposed to the elements is terrifying, because I don't know where these creators necessarily live, but I live in the Pacific Northwest, and clothing moths are so common here because of the climate in the Pacific Northwest, in Vancouver. It's cold and it's damp, and it's warm inside, but it's also damp inside. So moths are very easy to get here, and they terrify me. So my stash, some would say, is large, but it's very much bagged and tucked away in sealed bins, sealed boxes, bagged, double bagged in bins on bins, because I have had a moth infestation several years ago. It's hell, okay? And so I get stressed out seeing other creators with a huge stash just exposed to the elements. And I'm like, you're not worried? You're stressing me out. But in terms of like someone having a large stash, that doesn't really stress me out. Yarn doesn't expire, you know what I mean? Like, it's not gonna spontaneously combust. If it's been there too long, it doesn't go bad unless you get bugs. And that's the part that weirds me out. Not even moths, carpet beetles. Ooh, I don't like bugs. Don't like bugs. Well, I love bugs. I don't love bugs inside. Bugs outside, love. Inside, Swatching is overrated. Learning to eyeball it is a skill, and I'm gonna half agree with this. Swatching is overrated for some people. Who is calling me? Rude. The amount of times that I've refilmed or been interrupted trying to get this video done, it's like the universe is telling me to just shut the fuck up. That's what it feels like. Anyways, where were we? Swatching is overrated. Learning to eyeball it is a skill. I agree with this to some extent, because swatching is overrated for some people. It just depends on the brain, like how your brain functions. I don't like swatching. If I do a gauge swatch and have to compare my stitches per however many inches to the designer's, I cannot do anything with those numbers. Learning to eyeball it is a skill I will agree with, because that's how some brains work. It is a skill to learn how to take your fiber, to know how your fiber will behave in certain scenarios, what hook size or what needle size to pair with that fiber to have your intended fabric. Are you going for something dense and warm and thick? Are you going for something light and drapey and flowy? There's so many factors, and to know how to eyeball that is a skill. But swatching is very beneficial for some people. Not I, but some people. Sleeve Island is actually my favorite. No brain, only sleeve. This made me giggle a lot. I do enjoy Sleeve Island. Where I struggle with is, so I freehand a lot of my pieces. So when I'm picking up stitches to do a sleeve, I never write that number down. I never count how many stitches I pick up to knit the sleeve. So by the time I get to the second sleeve is where I procrastinate having to go back to count the stitches that I picked up on the first sleeve. I love Sleeve Island. It's great. No thoughts, only sleeve. No brain, only sleeve. I agree with that one. Made me giggle. Oh, this one says there are wrong ways to knit. I'm gonna disagree. There are wrong ways to knit personally. For example, I am a English style thrower knitter. I throw when I knit. I cannot knit continental, but I'm not going to look a continental knitter dead in the eye and say you're knitting wrong, because continental knitting is wrong for me, but maybe not for you. And I think there's wrong ways for me to knit. There's wrong ways for me to do things, but I can't look at you and say you're doing it wrong because I can't do it that way. You know what I mean? It's a personal thing. It's personal. This one comes from another fellow small business designer, and I agree with this one. I feel bad charging a lot for a piece when I've used acrylic yarns, and I will agree. Let's say I'm making two sweaters, the exact same sweater, the same design, everything. One's made of wool, one's made of acrylic. The cost of the materials for the acrylic versus the wool, one is bigger, one is lower. So if I'm putting the same price tag on an acrylic versus a wool sweater, because they took the same amount of time to make, I do feel bad charging a lot for acrylic. Even though people prefer like a handmade, y'all, my bangs are tripping me out. Even though some people have preferences on their fiber content, they're vegan, they're allergic to wool, whatever they prefer acrylic for, they don't mind paying that handmade price. I do agree that I do still feel bad slapping a big price tag on an acrylic piece. I agree with that one. I agree. Ooh, this one, y'all. People want slow fashion at a fast fashion price and are so disrespectful about it, and I agree. People want a handmade garment. And to have something handmade is a luxury. That is a luxury piece. But see the price tag and have the most rank attitude about it. It's the audacity. They're like, well, I can get it for cheaper on Shein. Okay, enjoy your lead poisoning and use of like slave labor wages. I don't know what you want me to say. Like, this is my price for my slow fashion piece. Yeah, it's the disrespect. There's a certain way of saying, I love your pieces, but your price is out of my budget at this moment. You don't get to lowball small businesses. That's a hot take that I think a lot of like small businesses and small designers can agree with. Next up we have, I think stitch markers are pointless. Buy 100 pack of bobby pins instead. This made me giggle, and I will agree to some extent, because for some people, they lose stitch markers quickly, or they don't have the budget to be buying like handmade, hand sculpted clay stitch markers or whatever it may be. But it's the same thing of like buying the lowest end of what you can buy. Let's say I buy the cheapest crochet hooks I can find, like some plastic ones at the dollar store, but I want to invest in something higher end. It's not pointless if you want a higher end tool. A stitch marker, you can get a bobby pin and use it to mark your stitches. You can tie yarn in a circle and use that to mark your stitch or your beginning of round. But there's a higher end spectrum. You can buy everything in between. It's pointless, that made me giggle, because I'm just about to drop some stitch markers. This one made me giggle. Maybe I should just start selling bobby pins instead. Next we have, oh, this one made me giggle. Y'all kind of came a little spicy with these, and I was impressed. Bitches need to stop shopping at Hobby Lobby, especially if they advocate for boycotting. Thanks. Period. I'm Canadian. We don't have Hobby Lobby here. I've never been to a Hobby Lobby, but I didn't realize how shady they were. And I watched a video, by Made in the Moment. If you don't follow Emma's channel, they do like drama content in the craft space, in the fiber arts community. And they did a deep dive into Hobby Lobby's history. And I had no idea they were so like far-right Christian, anti-LGBTQIA+, just very shady company. And I should go back and rewatch that video and refresh my memory, but from what I recall, there was like some shady, fraudulent, like, they're just shady. I'm gonna link this video and you should check it out, and I'm gonna agree. Hobby Lobby is not a good company, and I'm gonna say that across the board. None of the big box stores are good. Michael's, ass. Joann, ass. Hobby Lobby, ass. But for some people, that's all that is accessible. So it's hard. It's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword. I don't have Hobby Lobby, and I don't know what the difference is between like a Hobby Lobby and a Joann. We also don't have Joann here. So we've got Fabricland. We've got Fabricland and Michael's in Canada. I don't know what else. This one says, I steam finish projects instead of properly blocking. Bestie, steam blocking is a method of blocking. It is a perfectly acceptable method of blocking. So that's, you properly blocked something. If you steam blocked it, that's a proper block. I don't have anything else to say besides that. I steam block. I can't talk. I steam block certain projects over wet blocking them. You can't wet block every project. A steam block is valid. Don't be so hard on yourself. This one is very wholesome and cute and love. IRL crafting communities are underrated. Go to your local sit and stitch. It's like touching grass times 100. My heart. First of all, it made me giggle that they call it a sit and stitch, because my crafting community locally, we call it a bitch and stitch. Touching grass. It's like touching grass times 100. That's very cute. And I absolutely agree with this hot take. Absolutely. There's a difference between like connecting with your online community on the internet. That's still awesome, fun and fresh, but to sit in a room or at a park or wherever, your local yarn store, with people in real life, it sounds anxiety inducing, and I assume a lot of y'all got anxiety if you're watching me. Respectfully, but peace and love. I'm just gonna assume some of y'all got anxiety, but it's so fun. And when the weather is nicer here in Vancouver, I do want to do like a monthly sit and stitch, we'll call it, to be PG. I would love to host a little sit and stitch in Vancouver. That's another conversation for when the sun comes out at a later date. And let's get into the next one. I'm very impressed with how quickly I'm getting through these. It's because I've had to film this 12 times. That's why. These 3 hot takes. So when I told you guys to submit your hot takes, I said, y'all submit hot takes and I'm gonna put in my hot takes at the end. And these were 3 hot takes that you guys submitted that I also was going to talk about. So, people who prefer bamboo over metal needles make me nervous. The friction feeling is ick, and I agree with this 100%. And I never judge someone if they use bamboo needles. If that's what you like, that's what you like. However, why do you like them? I have worked with like wooden needles a couple times. I have a copper needle set, and definitely the price difference in a metal set of needles versus wooden, there's a very big difference, and I know that is a privilege to have metal over wood just on a purely like sensory preference alone. My eye's been twitching this whole video. I hope you can't see it. That would be embarrassing. But the couple times that I've knit with wood needles, like I feel like when you've been working for a while and you've had your yarn kind of passing over the wood needles for, 10-15 minutes, the wood like warms up and it feels waxy. It feels like molassesy, like I'm knitting, and there's just like a resistance on the needles. I love metal because they slip, like everything's just slippy slidey. I just spat. Everything slips and slides very easily, and it doesn't, like when metal warms up, it just feels like warm metal. The texture doesn't change. I feel like all of the wooden needles I've used, they feel waxy once I get going, and I do not like that. So I agree with that one. This hot take says acrylic yarn is good and useful actually, and I will agree with that. Why we've let these like elitist yarn snobs demonize acrylic yarn to the extent that they have demonized it drives me insane. Acrylic yarn has a purpose and a place. Some examples: if you have a wool allergy, acrylic is right there. That's a great option that that can look and feel like wool does. You're vegan, you don't want to buy an animal fiber, there you go, acrylic. You're making a blanket, a massive blanket that you don't want to hand wash and hang to dry. Acrylic, throw it in the wash, throw it in the dryer. You're making something for a baby, a dog sweater, something that needs to be like mittens, hats, you've got younger kids, items that need to be frequently washed, and you don't have the lifestyle to be just like la-di-da, like hand washing all of your frequently dirtied garments. Also mobility issues. If you have a big wool sweater that has to be like hand washed, wool gets really heavy when it's wet. To be lifting a big heavy wet wool sweater, not everyone has the mobility for that. To be able to just throw something in the wash, in the dryer, that's great and good and useful. When we talk about acrylic and synthetic fibers being bad, we are talking about big fast fashion companies who are mass producing plastic that looks terrible after you wear it 3 times. So you spend very little amount of money on a fast fashion garment that someone was exploited to make said garment. The environmental impact of producing said synthetic fiber in a mass scale, selling in a mass scale, and then having garments thrown out in a mass scale that are produced with synthetic fibers. That is where the issue is. The issue is not with your grandma making a crochet blanket out of acrylic yarn, because just making your own clothing is sustainable. It doesn't matter what you're making it with. The problem is the fast fashion companies pumping out all this plastic shit that just rots in a landfill and creates microplastics. That's where the problem is. We need to separate the 2 issues. Please and thank you. We got a lot of hand motion going on there. Next, bitch. This one might piss people off. This hot take says Marino isn't all that. And I'm gonna agree with that. Just like acrylic, Marino has a place. Merino is a very soft wool. It is very soft and squishy and pillowy, and because of that, it's become very easily accessible. It's easily accessible. It's Merino yarn. But because it's so soft and fine and delicate, it's not very durable. It's not very durable. So if you're gonna make something that gets a lot of friction, you're gonna knit a pair of socks, you're gonna knit mittens that, you know, friction, whatever, and you have merino wool that's so soft and delicate that it just pills. You wear it once and it's pilled and it's stretching. Merino isn't all that, and I learned that. Well, I was kind of having some doubts with merino. I've made a couple things with superwash merino, and just the final garment stretches so much, and I'm like, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. But every time I've knit with merino, it's stretched a lot and it pills so quickly. So when I do work with merino, I hold it with mohair to give it some strength, to give it some durability, to give it some substance, because I agree, merino ain't all that. And it's not for every project. Just like acrylic isn't for every project, merino isn't for every project. And I have a rule now, after I'm actually wearing them, and I will show you them. I'm gonna take it off my foot because you don't get to see my naked foot. This is a sock. This is the first sock I ever knit, and it's made out of this gorgeous superwash hand-dyed merino. And I wear these socks a lot, like in bed. You can't really tell on this black yarn. No, it's actually very hard to tell on the black yarn, but you can kind of see here, there's a lot of pilling because merino is just so soft and so delicate. And I wear these in bed and around the house. I don't put shoes on with these socks. You can see more here. It just pills so easily. So I now have a rule that I will not buy merino sock yarn. And maybe I'm planning on starting to dye some more yarn to sell in little sock yarn sets, maybe. I'm not gonna be selling merino because it's so soft and delicate. It's just, I don't like it for a lot of projects, and I'm sitting on a pair of socks. I did not realize that. It's for certain things. It's for certain things, and merino isn't all that. Sorry. Okay, this is my last hot take, and this is the hot take that I wanted to submit. And I don't understand this one. My hot take is that twisted rib isn't that bad. And I want to know why y'all have a bone to pick with twisted rib. Why is it so, like, it's all the memes about, like, seeing twisted rib in a pattern, just being like, absolutely not. Like, what did twisted rib ever do to you that you hate it so bad? I love the way it looks. Actually, the socks I was literally just sitting on, I did a twisted rib cuff, and I think it just looks so professional and crisp and clean compared to an untwisted rib. And I think it might be to do with, like, the way, like, your knitting style. So I knit English. I throw my yarn. Is it the continental knitters that hate it? Is it hard to knit a twisted rib continental? I find twisted rib, it just eliminates that, like, gap. Sometimes I'm doing ribbing and it's just very gappy, and it's gaping, and, like, this just kind of tightens everything up and makes it look so gorgeous. This is not blocked, but it still looks great. It's a darker yarn, so it's not super visible, but I love twisted rib, and y'all are always hating on twisted rib, and it's not that bad. I don't get it. If you don't like twisted rib, please explain to me in the comments why. What did she ever do to you? That's my hot take. And I will have to say that I'm hot in this sweater, and I've tried to film this so many times and I have nothing else to say. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Check out my website. Check out my hand-dyed yarn. Check out my hand-spun yarn. Follow my other social media. Thank you for watching. This is maybe the 6th time I've filmed this, so adios.